Okay, thanks, Paul. Well, so far in our travel on, maybe I'm going to use that. Might sound a little better. Okay. So far in our travelogue series over the last couple of years, we've been to a variety of exotic locations around the world. This month is a little bit different, although I consider a lot of the locations I'll talk about exotic locations, beautiful locations. But rather than traveling halfway around the world, I'm dealing today with locations that are anywhere from about a 3.5 hour to 8 hour drive from where I live in Alberta. So, and with 3 other club members from Alberta, this is home territory for a portion of the club.
So Neil, did you say in Alberta you can see edge of the earth from where you live?
That's Saskatchewan, where you can watch your dog run away for days.
That's to the east.
To the east.
Yeah.
So in case anybody isn't familiar, Alberta is one of the 10 provinces, 3 territories in Canada. We're the second province in from the Pacific Ocean next to BC. We're bordered on the north by Northwest Territories and to the south by Montana. Alberta, and this really isn't to scale, but Alberta is about 1.5 times the size of California. Looking at the other way, California has about 8 times the population of Alberta. So we've got lots of wide open space. Capital of Alberta is Edmonton. This is our legislative building, which is equivalent to your state capitol buildings. It's just a few random shots from Alberta before I get into the main part of the locations we're going to deal with. We occasionally get snow.
Always.
That's why you're called snowbirds?
And even the buffalo learned to stick out their tongue and collect snow.
Highway 2 is closed today.
Yeah, I know there's a bad storm going through. It's just another winter scene, prairie scene, but not a unfamiliar sight on the Canadian prairies or Alberta prairies. This is actually a bridge in St. Albert, which is the city I live in now. Just another prairie scene. Got a pretty diverse province in terms of geology, geography, history. Although, again, we're a relatively new area. I mean, Alberta became a province in 1905. Late 1800s, there was not much going on. We were a part of, oh, I just went blank. When we became a province, we were part of
West Territories.
no.
Yep.
Rupert's, not Rupert's Line.
No, West Territories.
Okay. Anyway, lots of historic sites around the province, beautiful small towns. Badlands. We've got, as I say, a wide variety of types of geography. It's not just mountains, which is often what people think of when they think of Alberta, is like Jasper National Park or Banff National Park. Mountains are a significant portion of the western part of the province, but we certainly have a lot more than mountains. Alberta is home to 5 of Canada's national parks. To the north is Buffalo National Park, which borders or across the border into Northwest Territories. On the western side in the Rockies is Jasper National Park. And just to the south, Banff National Park. Down in the bottom left corner of the province is Waterton National Park. And then a small, entirely fenced-in national park just east of Edmonton is Elk Island National Park, which incidentally is where that buffalo photograph came from earlier.
And bottom one is, what's the
Glacier National Park, yeah, and that's actually one of the areas I'll be talking about today. So today I'm going to focus mainly on Jasper National Park, Waterton National Park down the corner, as we just mentioned, that extends into Glacier National Park in Montana. And then two other areas, Pincher Creek. I'll be talking sort of about the general area around Pincher Creek, not just the town site of Pincher Creek. And then the location I visited, I guess for the second time in my life this past summer. The first time I was about probably 7 or 8 years old on a family camping trip. The Cypress Hills. So starting off in Jasper, the park has basically two main roads traversing or going through it. The east-west road, which is how you get there from Edmonton, drive through the park to the west into BC and carry on, if you wish, to Vancouver. It's the Yellowhead Highway. Then there's a highway from the town side of Jasper that goes south down into Banff National Park, Lake Louise. It's often referred to as the Icefields Parkway. So not a lot of roads to traverse in the park. And then there's a couple of offshoot roads. You can see one that goes up to Hot Springs, and another one that goes up to Moline Lake. And there's several other shorter roads in the park. One up to Mount Edith Cabell, which is actually closed at the moment because of the fire a year and a half ago, which I'm going to talk about in a moment.
So north to south, what are we talking about that distance?
I'd have to ask that, wouldn't you? That's one thing I didn't look up. I couldn't say. It would be maybe, I don't know, 150, 200 miles.
Couple hundred miles.
Yeah.
That's what I was guessing, so.
Yeah. So it's the largest national park in the Canadian Rockies. It's actually the second largest dark sky preserve in the world. So if you want to go get some nice night photos, even the northern lights when they're displaying, it's a nice dark sky park. Originally established as a forest park in 1907 and as a national park in 1930. And it was really the railway that opened the park up to tourists initially, and then eventually roads were built in about 1930s. So just a couple of views of the town site of Jasper. The lower left-hand corner is the Athabasca Hotel, which is an old hotel. It's the type where a lot of the rooms share bathrooms and so on. The rooms actually, reports aren't that bad. Had friends that have stayed there. That's one of my usual stops in Jasper, at least one morning when I'm there for breakfast. Their restaurant there is never very busy. It's usually locals in the restaurant. Food is great, service is good, prices aren't bad. Across the street is Smitty's, which almost always has a lineup. So if you want good service and good food, you walk across the street to the Athabee, which is it's affectionately known as. For those that are into backpacking, and my backpacking days are over, but I've been privileged to hike some of the trails in in Jasper. Skyline Trail, it's got some scenery on it that's, you know, second to none. We did it in August, I think the first time was 2016. We had scheduled it as a 5-day backpacking trip. On day 3, we got snowed out. And fortunately, our campground was next to sort of a exit route that took us straight down the mountain, or pretty much straight down the mountain. The alternative was to go up and over a snow-covered pass, which, and that was the problem, was any paths themselves had disappeared under several feet of snow. So we opted to hike out, returned the following year and completed the trip. Again, it's spectacular scenery. The poles you can see on the photos on the right are called bear poles, and they're basically to hang your food from so that the bears can't get at it. Food and anything with any kind of smell to it. You definitely do not want it in your tent unless you want a visitor in the middle of the night. And he's probably not going to be all that friendly. Tonquin Valley is another gorgeous hike. Again, we did it, I think, as a 4 or 5 day backpacking trip. We were really fortunate on that trip to have these mountain caribou wander through our campground. They're actually an endangered species. There's 2 very small herds of them in this area of Jasper Park. And because of them, they actually closed the backcountry in this area of Jasper. They closed the backcountry from I believe October 1 to May 1st. And that's to protect the caribou. It kind of protects them in kind of interesting way. In that the caribou in the wintertime actually go to higher altitudes. Their long legs can handle the deep snow, and they can paw through the snow to get down to food, like grasses and so on. The predators can't deal with the deep snow, so the wolves, coyotes, and so on are kind of stuck down in the lowlands. The caribou are protected in the upper regions of the mountains. By closing the park, it eliminates like cross-country skiers and snowshoers and hikers and so on from packing down the snow as they walk through the mountains, and giving the predators access to the higher parts of the park. I've also canoed down Moline Lake 3 or 4 times. The lake is about 22 miles long. It's absolutely beautiful. There's a campground about halfway down and another really nice campground at the far end. And so it's a very easy paddle to do in 2 days. A lot of people do it in 1. You see a lot of canoes, a lot of kayakers. Other than some tour boats that go partway down the lake, there's no power boats allowed on the lake. The only way you can get to those campgrounds is by the water. There's no backcountry trails going to them. And so they're very quiet places to go. In the middle picture on the left, you can see sort of behind the picnic table there, some metal bins or lockers. Those are, again, bear lockers, so it's a different way of keeping your food protected from the bears. There's 4 or 6 actual bins or lockers within each of those containers. Nice thing about canoeing is you can carry a lot more stuff, including makings for margaritas, so you really don't have to suffer too much on these trips. Of course, Jasper has lots of wildlife, grizzly bears in the upper left. you see bears probably most times I go, not necessarily every time. But virtually any time I go up to Jasper, you're gonna see the elk or wapiti. There's herds of elk everywhere. And there's also other kinds of wildlife. Annie and Gail came to visit one year. This shot was taken in the Valley of Five Lakes, which is a fairly easy, very popular hike that I guess might take you about an hour and a half to do. And you go past, obviously, 5 little lakes like this. I'll talk about the fire in a minute, but the Valley of Five Lakes was right in the middle of the burned area. So that was closed this past summer. They are rebuilding the trail. They say it's going to be bigger and better than ever. They're rebuilding some of the bridges, some of the slopes that you had to climb up. They're putting in stone steps and so on, so make it a lot more accessible. They can't do much about the burnt trees, but they can certainly do a lot about the trail, which will make it a lot easier for a lot more people to hike on. So on July 2024, so about a year and a half ago, Jasper was hit with a pretty devastating wildfire. So on July 22nd, they discovered 2 different fires, actually, one burning northwest of the town site of Jasper and the other south of Jasper. By 10 p.m. that evening, they had ordered evacuation of the town site. And I've seen photos of that evacuation, just long lines of cars trying to get out of town. And once on the highway, the only exit was to the west to British Columbia. The fire was already essentially closing off the road to the east, which would have taken them out to Hinton and to Edmonton. So that evening, they ordered the evacuation. By the evening of July 24th, so 2 days later, the fire south of town had reached the town site and was starting to burn the town. And on the next morning, July 25th, the 2 fires actually merged and became a huge wildfire. In the end, 25,000 residents, workers, and visitors had to be evacuated. And about a quarter of the town was destroyed by the fire. 358 out of 1,100 buildings. No, after the fire, there was a lot of concern. Well, is Jasper worth visiting? I mean, if it's all burned, why do you want to go and see a bunch of dead trees? And that's really what I'm going to talk about for the next few minutes is you do want to go see Jasper. You do want to go see the burnt trees and parts of Jasper that didn't burn. So within the sort of blue circle in the middle of the map there, first drew this just kind of based on my observation from a couple trips this past summer as to where the burn area was. And the area that burned is pretty much totally destroyed as far as the trees are concerned. But you can see it's still a relatively small part of the park. There's still lots of jasper that is still as pristine as ever. And a couple of days ago, I decided to Google the map of the burnt area, and actually it was pretty close to what I mapped out or what I drew out on that previous map. I wasn't sure from my own observations, how much of the backcountry that fire might have spread into, but in actuality, some of the trails are closed. The road up to Mount Edith Cavell, as I mentioned, is closed, which closed off one end of the Tonkin Valley hike that I mentioned. But that hike, you actually went in one, or most people went in one sort of entrance, came out a different place, and then they usually left a car there to get themselves back to okay, first location. Now you pretty much have to do it as an in and out kind of hike. So some of the trail and Moline Lake, which is where the Skyline Trail starts, that trail is still open. But as you say, the areas that burned, they burned. One kind of offshoot of the burn is driving around. I can suddenly see things that I couldn't see before, obviously, because there's no trees in the way. So suddenly you start seeing streams and little bits of river and so on that you never knew were there. It's unfortunate. Trees had to burn in order to see them, but. Yeah, you won't be making a phone call anytime soon.
Did it work before it burned?
Actually, I think this was in a parking lot, and I think it was pretty much sort of a direct line up to. There was a youth hostel partway up, but they did use it for something, because our road would close periodically, and I think it might have been used periodically to call the youth hostel and have them come down and get you or whatever. And I think the youth hostel is gone. This dock, I was kind of sorry to see that it had burned. I drove down to this little lake. Because over the years of a number of times set up my tripod at the end of that pier and taken photographs such as these. So I was kind of sorry to
Where was that?
see that's Leech Lake. So that's on 93A, so the old highway that goes past the Lasso Campground. It's actually just before it joins up at Athabasca Falls with the main highway.
Look, the bottom right picture, the green water in the lake, do you have polarized around? But I mean, there was reflections up to them.
Yeah.
And then apparently there was some sunblock because of the trees. So
Yeah.
is that looking down into the water? Or, I mean, it doesn't look like it.
That's partly reflection from the trees, partly the color of the water.
Huh.
There are a lot of the lakes in Jasper have an emerald green color to them. A lot of it's because of being glacier fed. There's one, there's one little lake as you're driving into Jasper. That is so green, you would swear that people painted the bottom of it. It's just incredible deep color. But if you open your mind, kind of start looking past the burned trees, you'll start to see that even in the burnt forest, there's a lot of beauty. You know, differences in, contrasting colors. Some trees that didn't burn contrasted against the black trunks of those that did. Wildflowers are still blooming. The green grass, these photos, pretty well all the photos I'll be showing of Jasper now were taken last summer. The forest floor is starting to come back. The grass is growing, there's wildflowers growing. Trees will be starting to grow. The wildlife is still there. The bald eagle in the upper left-hand corner, Columbia ground squirrel, Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep, and black bear. Incidentally, I consider myself more of a landscape photographer and an opportunistic wildlife photographer. So I'll shoot things if I'm driving along and see them. Occasionally I go looking for wildlife, mainly birds, but generally what I photograph just animals that I happen across. As opposed to true wildlife photographer that knows where the bears are and goes out to find them. There are moose. So just some more pictures of burned areas, and again, you know, when you sort of look past the blackened trees, there's a lot to see. Of course, fog in the morning helps to make an image of this. Then the areas that aren't burned, again, there are a lot of beautiful areas in Jasper. There's nothing quite like a absolutely still mountain lake, mountain pond, reflecting the land around it. Again, got the colors kind of more in the lower part of the photo would be more of the natural color of the water. And then the bright green reflection from trees on the shoreline. The shot on the left is Lane Lake. And on the right is just a scene along the road on the way up to Lane Lake. Lots of waterfalls. That's something I love photographing. I like photographing small waterfalls. I mean, I appreciate and I'll photograph, you know, Niagara Falls. But to me, a little fall like this is far more beautiful than Niagara Falls. But that's personal choice. Water lily. More waterfall. And incidentally, Athabasca Falls is a huge fall on the Athabasca River. There's a viewing platform there. There's probably hundreds, if not thousands, of photos taken of Athabasca Falls every day. I've taken photos of it in the past. I was there last summer. I thought, no, I don't want to take the same photo everybody else has taken. Again. So I wandered past the crowd and found this little tiny waterfall that actually feeds into, I think it's actually an offshoot of the river, kind of comes around the back of this big boulder there, a big rock. And just this beautiful, graceful little waterfall feeds back into the main river. To me, that was worth the trip as opposed to taking a picture of Athabasca Falls. Pyramid Lake was not in the burn area. This is north of Jasper. It's about a, I don't know, 15-minute drive up a road. There's a resort there, which is just sort of behind where I took this photo from. This is Moab Lake. Again, more reflections. Buddy of mine, Dave Buzzio, and I were on a photo trip in August. We went up to Moab. You drive most of the way, and then it's, I don't know, 15-minute hike into the lake itself, or where you can kind of view the lake. We encountered two other guys in the parking lot that hiked in with us. And the only other people I saw, well, got a picture of them in a moment. This is another reflection from that lake. Just incredible how still that water is. This couple out fishing were the only other people we encountered, and we were there for probably close to half a day. Incidentally, somebody may have noticed or noted that, well, I didn't mention Banff National Park as being one of the parks I want to talk about today. I mentioned where it was located next to Jasper. If you've never been, I would say absolutely go to Banff National Park. It is beautiful. There's a lot to see there. I haven't actually been there probably for about 10 years. The main reason is because Banff has become so popular and so heavily populated with tourists. Nothing wrong with tourists, they help the economy. The problem is getting access to a lot of the stuff in Jasper, or pardon me, in Banff. Like a lake I went up to several times in the past, it's well known, Moraine Lake. The one time you just drive up, park in the parking lot at sunrise, go, get a nice sunrise shot and leave. The only way you can go get in there now virtually is by in advance booking yourself a ticket on a bus. You can no longer drive up to that lake. There's other areas that have kind of become like that as well. So given for me, I mean, if I lived in Calgary, which is an hour away from Banff, sure, go out for a day trip. But for me, driving 3.5 hours or 4 hours to Banff. So actually Jasper and Banff are about the same driving distance for me. But driving to Banff, paying the higher prices for everything there, hotel prices and so on, or 3.5 hours to this, for me, it isn't a choice. Just kind of one misty morning, on the left is Moline Lake. You can kind of see one of the little tour boats there that takes you down. About halfway down, they only go about halfway down the lake, to a little island where you can get off and take pictures of Spirit Island, which at one time said was probably the most photographed place in Canada. Just a little, actually, it's not even an island, it's sort of a little peninsula off. If the water's high enough, it covers the peninsula and it looks like a little island. I don't really have any photos of it. I've paddled past it. The nice thing about once you get past Spirit Island is there's no more tour boats. And I mean, they don't really bother, they're not noisy or anything, it's just when they go by, they do create a wake. And if you're in a canoe, that starts bouncing around. Most of the operators are really good about slowing right down when they pass canoes or kayaks, so you get very little wake. I've actually only had one boat that didn't slow down when it passed. And that's out of, like I say, 3 or 4 trips. And these boats, they start running, I don't know, about 8 o'clock in the morning. And once they start running, there's one like every 5 or 10 minutes that goes past you, so. Once you get past Spirit Island, there's nothing other than other kayakers and canoes. Okay, my forward button stopped. Just a second. I mentioned that there's lots of caribou, not caribou, pardon me, elk or wapiti. And Dave and I were setting up our tents last summer. Right in the bushes, you can see in the lower left-hand corner, my gazebo. That bunch of trees right to the left of that, there was those, I think there's 3 elk all laying in the trees. And then this 4th one was another clump of trees, kind of where I'm standing to take this picture. And that was an iPhone photo. Actually, all 3 of those were iPhone pictures. It was probably, I don't know, 6 or 8 feet away from that elk on the right when I took its photo. They seemed to be just kind of watching us set up tent. After a while, they got a bit bored and wandered away. There's still wild animals. You do not want to get too close to them, but these that kind of hang around the campground probably pretty used to people. So despite the area that was burned, there's lots to see in Jasper. It's a beautiful park. I really do love it there. And despite the burned trees, the mountains are still there. They're not going anywhere. So from Jasper, I'm going to go down to the southern end of the province to area I just refer to as sort of the Pincher Creek area. Pincher Creek is just a little town in the middle of this. I think Brad would probably agree it's an area he really enjoys because he spent a lot of time camping, I think primarily in this area. I really only discovered it about 3-4 years ago. I started going to a photography conference that was held in Pincher Creek. And I first signed up for that conference primarily because of the keynote speaker. I'd never heard of this conference before. It was the second year it was being held. But when I looked at, it said it was being held in Pincher Creek, and I thought, what the hell are you holding a conference in Pincher Creek? All I knew about it was there's a little tiny town in the middle of nowhere. After attending that first conference, I discovered why it was being held there. Just because of it's nature conference, so it's primarily landscape and wildlife photographers attending. And there are some amazing wildlife photographers attending, some amazing wildlife photographers presenting. The same thing on the landscape side. They've also had some astrological or night sky photographers speaking. They had one year they had a storm chaser that had some amazing photos. But it's a small conference. I think probably about 350 people. Tickets first go on sale about a week, about the last week of November, to people that have attended before. So you get first chance of getting a ticket to the next year. Then ticket sales go live to the public. Last year they sold out in 45 minutes. This year I think they sold out in 10 minutes. So I was fortunate to be one of the previous attendees, so I'll be going for I think this will be my 4th year. So Pincher Creek is right on the highway that carries on down to Waterton Lakes, that I'll talk about next. But it's really kind of the whole area around Pincher Creek that's kind of beautiful to explore. There's areas, so there's waterfalls like this one, about a 15-minute drive from Pincher Creek. This is Lundbrook Falls. So Pincher Creek was actually named after a pair of pincers, or used for trimming horses. Were discovered by a member of the Northwest Mounted Police in 1874. Pincers were rusting in a creek. Obviously, they'd been dropped there by an earlier settler and named the area Pincher Creek. It was incorporated as a village in 1898 and the town is 1906. The area is known as where the prairie meets the mountains. That's kind of significant. Along most of the west side of Alberta, you sort of transition from prairie into foothills and into mountains. If you've ever driven, particularly if you've driven from Calgary to Banff, you'll really see that transition into the foothills. In area of Pincher Creek, basically the prairie goes right up to the bottom of the foothills. There really no harmony at the bottom of the mountains. There really aren't any foothills to speak of, so it's quite a dramatic transition. Lots of attractions in the area, Kootenai Brown, Pioneer Village, Heritage Acres, Castle Mountain, which has a ski area, it has Provincial Park, number of campgrounds, Ove Lake, Provincial Park, which is great for bird watching, Lundbrook Falls, Head Smashed in Buffalo Jump, which is a heritage site. Or UNESCO, I believe it's UNESCO World Heritage Site. To the south is Waterton Lakes National Park, and then to the west is the Crow's Nest Pass into British Columbia. So a couple historical tidbits about Pincher Creek area. The town really owes its origins to the Northwest Mounted Police, who established when they were expanding west. They established in 1878 a horse ranch right next to where the town's located now. The ranch really was to supply the force with horses, obviously. They're patrolling the prairies. They need horses. They need replacement horses. The ranch was the ideal way to provide a steady supply of horses. And I think it actually operated up somewhere in the mid 1900s, was when it was finally closed down. Frank's slide, certainly to Albertans is a well-known slide. 1903, part of Turtle Mountain slid down to cover a section of the coal mining town of Frank. This is just, I don't know, 30, 45-minute drive to the west of Pincher Creek. And it killed somewhere between 70 and 90 people. And there's a viewing area there now, and you can kind of see where the original train tracks were, and just the amount of rock that slid down on top was just tremendous. And something I would almost bet that my fellow Albertans aren't aware of, but Brad may prove me a liar, is story that happened in Blairmore, which is again just a little bit past Frank. And there was an opera written about it. The story is about Philomena Lissandro, who was the only woman ever hanged in Alberta.
She was running rum.
Yep.
Booze.
Well, okay, one of my fellow Albertans knows the story.
You know it? No. Can't believe they hung someone for doing that. They should
Yeah.
even like that.
Well, they didn't hang her for rum running. She got involved in rum running. This was during Prohibition, so between 1915 and 1923. She got involved through her husband with rum running between BC and Alberta. Her husband got involved with this fellow that owned a hotel in Blairmore that was kind of the kingpin as far as rum runners went. And on one of these trips, this was actually Alberta Provincial Police Force at the time. They had set up a bit of a trap to catch these rum runners. There was a little bit of a shootout, and the kingpin's son got shot in the hand. Philomena often rode with this young man because they figured that the police wouldn't stop, a nice couple driving down the road. They wouldn't stop them and suspect them of rum running. Anyway, the kingpin thought that, or he just heard his son had been shot, thought that his son was dead. He actually went to this one constable's home who was involved in the traffic stop to confront him on it. The only thing that's known for sure is that the constable ended up dead. So it wasn't known for sure who shot him. It was either Philomena or the kingpin. His family convinced her to take the fall for it though. Take the blame and say that he hadn't had anything to do with the shooting, that she was the one that shot him. Because a woman is never gonna get hanged in Alberta. So a little bit of time, we'll take care of you once you get out of prison, et cetera, et cetera. Well, kind of backfired because I had both of them in the end,
You know where they hung her?
in Fort Saskatchewan
That's right.
on May 2nd, 1923.
Interesting, what I looked up was prohibition in the US.
Yeah.
Which followed Canada
Yeah,
and lasted way past years, we went to like 33.
yeah, there was a lot of running from Canada into the US.
But you would have thought that you guys learned by 23, it was a bad idea.
Always
Another
right.
10 years to figure it out.
There was a lot of rum running between British Columbia and Alberta.
Yeah,
Alberta was prohibition.
BC was not, so there was also a lot of running between BC and Washington State.
Yeah.
Well,
So anyway, the opera was written in 2003, so it's based on a true story. I've seen the opera 2 or 3 times. It's actually a beautiful opera. Just, for that button isn't working.
We'll explain how it works and all of a sudden it stops. So it's.
So that was another window popped up, which blocked it. So it's just some scenery around Prince Creek area. I think this is on the way up to Castle Mountain. It's an old cabin on the way up to Castle Mountain.
They just announced that Castle Mountain will be open year round now.
Well, there's a ski hill up there, but
Last week they opened it, it's Castle Mountain. Well, there's gonna be 3 areas.
Right.
Castle Mountain, Nikiska and Fortress
oh,
will be all year round.
it's gonna be skiing at Fortress.
There's been skiing in Fortress for a long time.
Yeah. Courtney Brown Pioneer Village is located right in Pincher Creek. It's kind of a collection of old buildings with displays in it, depicting or going through the history of the area. It's well worth a visit. Heritage Acres is kind of a museum of farming on the prairies, small town life. It's about a 10-minute drive from Pincher Creek. If you're there in the springtime, the wildflowers are beautiful. Glacier lilies, the yellow flower, task flowers, purple one. One on the lower right is a shooting star. Another historic church, but kind of familiar scene on the prairies. Doesn't really depict it well, but you can see the mountains in the distance. And as I mentioned, the prairies just kind of go straight up to the mountains. They say it doesn't really depict it that well there, but
It almost looks like a drawing.
yeah,
That's where we camped for 4 years, right there.
right there.
Making me cry.
Oh,
How beautiful it is.
it is. Lundrick Falls, photographed a number of times at different times of the day. A train trestle you can kind of see in the photos itself makes kind of an interesting subject to photograph. One person saw this photo when I posted it, said it looks like the clouds there were coming out of an old steam engine. So maybe there's a ghost train there. Lake Beauvert, I mentioned, is a good area for bird watching. And these were all taken one morning when I went up there. So a couple of swans, mallard duck, osprey, red-winged blackbird, which is very common around any marshy areas and certainly in Alberta, and a redneck grebe. And a moose, but it's probably fairly newborn calf. This is Bathing Lake, which I've photographed 2 or 3 times over the years, so these are different years, slightly different views. Some forest photos. So just the south of this area is Waterton National Park. You can see that it shares the border with Glacier National Park in Montana. It has one border crossing between Waterton and Glacier. It's a seasonal one. It's only open from May 1st to October 1st at Chief Mountain. Waterton was established in 1895 as Canada's fourth national park. Waterton and Glacier became first international peace park in 1932. 1995 designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And in 2017, the Peace Park was named, so the International Peace Park was named as the first international dark sky park. That same year, there was a forest fire that started in BC, known as the Keno Fire. Started in BC, spread into Alberta, into Waterton, destroyed about 30% of the park, including some of the park facilities, which still haven't been rebuilt. It's kind of hard to see on this park map, but the main road you see coming down from the north, that's a road from Pincher Creek, comes down, sort of cuts through the corner of the park down to Chief Mountain, boulder crossing in the lower right-hand corner. My mouse isn't working, so the pointer isn't working. No, that one won't work. But just kind of the top of the little string of lakes there, there's a road. That's really the park entrance that takes you down ultimately into the town side of Waterton, where it kind of dead ends. There's 2 roads that take off from that one that goes up to Cameron Lake, which is sort of the lake you can see again that crosses the border in the lower left-hand part of the park. And then Red Rock Canyon, sort of the red road, sort of in the middle of the map that goes up to the left up to Red Rock Canyon.
Does that end up being part of the headwaters of the Columbia? Is that the,
No,
or is that further west? That's in
It'll be
BC.
further west, I think.
not a whole lot further west, but further west.
Yeah. So the Waterton Lakes, you can sort of see that string of 3 lakes there. The one furthest towards the top of the map is Lower Waterton Lakes. The one in the middle is Middle Waterton Lakes. And the one that extends across the border is Upper Waterton Lakes. There are actually boat cruises you can take on Upper Waterton Lakes. Just a couple of pictures of the town site of Waterton. In the spring, it's not overly busy. This past summer, I heard reports that it got extremely busy and at times they actually shut down the park entrance because the park essentially got so full of people that couldn't handle them all. Part of the reason for that was free entry to the national parks all winter long. Pardon me, not all winter, all summer long. And again, if you go up this summer, it's free entry to the national parks
Oh, really? Yeah,
for Canadians and non-Canadians.
that happened about a decade ago too,
Could have been,
because I know I was in Nova Scotia and all the parks up there.
yeah. So, unlike one country I know, that January price for national parks pass for non-residents is going up to $250. Going up to Canada, you can come into our national parks for free.
Not to mention the discounted dollar.
Yeah, discounted dollar, and camping isn't free, but I think it's like a 20% discount off of the normal fees. One of the common flowers you see everywhere in the park is, and it kind of looks washed out in this, but it's the yellow leafed, or pardon me, arrow leafed balsam root. You see that everywhere in the park. This area, this shot, you can kind of see the burned areas for the burnt scar from Cattle Fire in 2017. So this shows you, show a few other photos that show that, wildfires are kind of a natural part of natural history. Wildfires happen naturally. Some are, man-made or man-caused, but a lot of fires happen naturally from lightning strikes. And it provides kind of rebirth, regrowth to that whole area. The old trees are burned, you get new growth that's able to grow on the forest floor that was wouldn't have grown when the forest canopy was still there. Some more shots with the arrow-leafed balsam root. Again, showing some of the burned areas, particularly on the right-hand photo. Cameron Falls is right on the edge of the town of Waterton. Basically, you walk across the street from town side, and the waterfall's right there. It's kind of a nice waterfall. Blackstone Falls is up near Red Rock Canyon. This is a waterfall I photograph every time I go to the park. As far as I know, it doesn't have a name. It's just waterfall alongside a road. And everything guess because it's a smaller, multi-layered little waterfall. That's the kind of waterfall I love photographing.
Have you, it might just be interesting, have you ever taken two photos and merged them, one where it was a quick shot to get clear through the lower stuff, and then the long one merged with it to kind of get that contrast in one photo, which your eye can pick up.
I've done that. I don't have one here, but I've done, and quite often I have to take the fast shot. There's a bit of breeze blowing. I gotta get the fast shot anyway because of the trees blowing around. You can see how clear the water is. It's kind of fun putting on my duck boots and tromping around in the water as a tripod and getting a shot. Some other little waterfalls. Almost a bit of an abstract. And another abstract. It's just looking down pebbles in the bottom of a stream. Kind of focusing on the surface of the water, so you get the bit of the texture of the ripples in the water. It's kind of a interesting shot.
Yeah.
You might not guess why this is called Red Rock Canyon. It's not because of the green trees. And I have fond memories again of as a kid on a family camping trip, camping near here, and along with my sister and older brother playing around on the rocks in along the stream. In the middle of the day, these rocks are covered with people. I got up there just pretty much at sunrise one morning, and I had about an hour shooting just myself. There was nobody there. Actually, the next person to arrive was a photographer from Waterton who was taking a client on a photo shoot up there. But by the time she arrived, there was a few other cars starting to arrive. I had an hour just to tromp around in the water. That's happy me. Waterton has its share of bears.
You usually carry bear spray?
I do, particularly if I'm walking away from the car. Pretty much always have bear spray either in my pack or on my belt. Some people carry bear bells, which I've heard all they do is attract the bears. So. Bear spray works. I've also, when I used to go backpacking, I carry bear bangers as well, which are. It looks like a little flare gun, but it's just a very, when you fire, it's just a very loud bang. Hopefully to scare them on. These were taken with a 600mm lens. Again, unfortunate to, in a sense fortunate, in another sense not all that fortunate to find these foxes. I kind of knew they were there because there was a line of cars parked along the road with people out with big long lenses on top. I thought, oh, they're looking at something. Right. Most of them were from the photo conference a couple of days earlier, so I recognized them. These were ringneck ducks. Rocky Mountain Bighorn. And the female or ewe. Still losing its winter coat, but provides pretty good camouflage. And lots of wildflowers there. I'm not sure the name of these. This is Cameron Lake. So the mountain at the far end is actually in Montana. This was, well, late May last year. This was the first day the road all the way up to Cameron Lake was open. And I was actually surprised. I thought the lake itself would be still partially frozen over, but I wouldn't have gone swimming in it. Another shot of Cameron Lake. And just some of the snow areas at the far end of the lake. Waterton, obviously, 8 years after the fire, a lot of the undergrowth has started to come back. But again, that bright green new growth against the black trees is quite a contrast, and again has a beauty all of its own. So created this abstract, which is a rename or a named rebirth, just kind of indicating the rebirth of a burned out forest. Prince Wales Hotel, just on the outskirts of town site. Fortunately, did not burn, nor did the town site. But you can kind of see more or less across the road from the hotel how close that fire came.
So that's Waterton, right?
That's in Waterton, or just on the edge of Waterton. The hotel was built in 1927. Interestingly, it was built by an American railway company, Great Northern, I think it was. People traveled by train to either East Glacier or West Glacier, then by bus and or boat up to Waterton. So even though it's nowhere near a railway, this in essence is a railway hotel. It was built to accommodate the tourists that the railway was trying to bring to the area. So I think there's sort of a string of hotels they built through Glacier National Park and this one in Waterton. Stayed there. It's a beautiful old hotel. I stayed there 2 years ago and actually booked a room for this spring when I'm or just after the conference in Pincher Creek. Again, you can see the burned area in the background. So from Pincher Creek, or kind of the last stop on our Alberta journey, Cypress Hills area. Which is, most of the Cypress Hills actually is in the Cypress Hills Interprovincial Park. The area was bypassed by retreating glaciers during the last ice age. The hills themselves were formed by millions of years of sedimentary deposits from rivers flowing out of the Rocky Mountains, and then millions of years of erosion. The hills are actually the highest point between the Rocky Mountains to the west and Labrador on the far east side of Canada. Human habitation actually dates back about 8,500 years. So that's even older than Paul.
Just pick up.
Cypress Hills Provincial Park was actually first established in Saskatchewan in 1931. 20 years later, Alberta established their provincial park. Then in 2000, they sort of merged them into an interprovincial park. In 2004, it was declared a dark sky preserve. The only real community within the provincial parks is Elkwater, which is on the south side of Elkwater Lake. It's primarily summer homes. I think it has a full-time population of less than 80. That's the lake itself. It's a beautiful park in the town. Kind of on the other side of that point of land, there's a beach, a little marina, which is currently under reconstruction. Some shots of the Cypress Hills. Wildflowers. Some more birds I caught when I was driving around last summer. Obviously the turkey vulture, which you see down here as well. Eastern kingbird, ferruginous hawk, I think that is, and American white pelicans. And the area is also sort of the natural grazing area for pronghorns. There is a kind of rudimentary, they call it sort of forest or forestry museum. There, it's just kind of a collection of old equipment. You just walk in and walk around. The observation tower, the fire lookout, originally was on top of a 100-foot tower. This is Red Rock Coulee, which is about an hour drive from Elkwater. And kind of an interesting experience there. I got out and there's a little parking area, and then kind of a bit of a, not really a grassy area and dirt, so on, down to all these kind of reddish boulders. So I stuck my camera in tripod and camera bag on the back and set off. And it looked fine. It had been raining for several days prior to this, but the ground looked kind of dry until I took one step and discovered that what looked dry was just a very thin crust on top of several inches of wet clay. And it was like stepping into several inches of axle grease. And I immediately went down, my camera kind of banged against a big boulder right beside me. I got covered in mud. Camera got somewhat covered in mud. But fortunately, it seemed to survive. I wiped the mud off of it and took another couple of steps, managed to get this photo before very gingerly making my way back to the car. It took me a while to get back, cause I had to use my tripod kind of as a support walking stick and just take one step and just kind of get balanced again. So what would have otherwise been a little bit longer excursion there was cut pretty short. And I'm not sure that my lens seemed to be fine. In August, when I was up in Jasper, they were out shooting in the rain. I got some water inside the lens. So I sent it off. It's actually on its way back to me now from Glendale or LA area repair shop. They did replace an element in it, so I don't know if banging it against the rock kind of damaged it, but at least I got a refurbished lens on its way out.
Send it to Canon.
I could have, this was a Canon, they've advertised themselves as a Canon repair. They're not, it's long past any, warranty periods.
Right, it's not your warranty.
So this one had a pretty good reputation. There was a Canon shop that you mentioned. If I was driving to LA, I'd probably have dropped it off there. This just was more convenient to kind of ship it to and back, so. Anyway, unfortunately, it was my favorite. It was my walk around lens. That's the lens I used most of the time. I couldn't take it to Scotland in September. So I did a lot of shooting with 50mm prime and a 100mm prime in Scotland. It's it was interesting. It changed how you shoot. Just a couple more old buildings, prairie shots. This one really was on its way down to Cypress Hills. But it's kind of a familiar sight as you drive around Alberta. Canola in the foreground. I'm sure some of you are probably concerned that all I do is eat hot dogs and beans when I'm camping. This night was chicken quesadilla with Caesar salad, a little bit better than hot dogs.
But you ate inside the mosquito net, right?
Yeah, that gazebo was actually, this wasn't too bad. I have been driven inside by mosquitoes. I bought that gazebo a few years ago and it was a great investment. Even with all that netting, it's actually pretty waterproof. The netting just seems to shed the water off of it. So I can go inside and cook my breakfast or supper and stay nice and dry. And for one last time. So, next